Brandy Moore. She flew in from Austin. She began her career with Schneider Electric's performance assurance team, where she had the opportunity to learn about the interaction of people in their spaces and the effects of daily decisions on the energy bill. This led to the development of a program called Conserve My Planet that strives to use best practices to teach and motivate behavior changes that in turn help support the efforts of administrators and facility managers to make a bigger impact on both the utility bills and the environment. Please help me welcome Ms. Brandy Moore.
Thank you. Is this on? Okay. So I'm a walker. I tend to walk around a lot. So if I get, the Schneider logo on my face, just ignore it. So I started with the company about 7 years ago, and my role was really to, at the time, work with building owners, maintenance and facilities directors to actually save energy. So we would go in and do these large projects, and then I would take over the project after the implementation and actually help them operate their facilities more efficiently. So what we found over the course of that time was that there were quite a few different challenges that we came up against, and I'm sure some of you can probably relate to some of these challenges. We were trying to change set points in spaces. We were trying to shorten time schedules. We were trying to enact indoor environmental standards, so standards for temperatures, standards for lighting, standards for humidity, those types of things, so that we could actually operate the facilities in an efficient manner. We also tried to implement some computer-saving technologies. Also, people don't like their computers touched, is what we learned there. And then, in various facilities, we would attempt to ban mini fridges, microwaves, space heaters, all of those appliances that either get tucked under desks or under a sheet that's, on top of a table. There's all sorts of great hiding spaces for those things. And so what we found was that it was incredibly difficult to motivate the occupants to go ahead and give up some of these luxuries that they've gotten used to. And as just a quick show of hands, how many of you have tried to do any of these things in your facilities? Few? How many of you have been wildly successful at these things? Not too many. So it's a big challenge, and it's still a challenge. And it will continue to be a challenge as long as there's power coming into our buildings and we are enabling those systems to provide some of these services. So what we did was we started to go about it a different way and look at the different ways you could go about it, rather. And so we wanted to understand, first off, is it really worthwhile to go to the effort of trying to change, all of these things? And so what we did was a little bit of research. Actually, BOMA did a study, the Building Owners and Managers Association, and they found that up to 60% of the energy use in a facility is actually in the hands of the occupants. They can affect 60% of your utility bill. And that sounds really high, doesn't it? Well, so that number's when it's unoccupied. I will give you that. But what we did find is up to about 30% of the energy is just in how you operate those few things that we listed on that list, and occupants have a major impact on that. So after figuring out, okay, we can affect easily up to 30% of our utility bill when it's occupied, and certainly up to 60% of our utility bill when it's unoccupied, we decided, yes, it's worthwhile. We need to go out and figure this thing out. So we went ahead and started doing some more research. In a typical facility, this is kind of the breakdown, and this is not for your healthcare facilities. Those are a little bit different. It's also not for your data center. But for your typical office building, institutional type space, you're going to find that about 35% is HVAC, 35% is lighting, 15% is plug load, and another 15% is other. So some of those things, those processes that go on behind the scenes. And so all of us have heard some really great advice today on how to affect, each chunk here. What we're really going to attack, though, is a slice of each one of those energy uses, because the behavior, the occupant behavior in your space certainly drives up your HVAC use. When people leave their office and don't turn off their lights, it certainly drives up your energy use for lighting. Plug loads, we all know what a mess that can be. And the other, well, that's all driven by these first 3 blocks. So it's going to affect the entire use of your building. So we found that there were 3 options. We could either mandate use. So we could send some rules out and say, this is the rule, you will follow it, no questions asked. And we tried that a couple times. I'm sure some of you have tried that or have been in situations where others have tried that. And it doesn't go over very well. However, it's sometimes necessary, in safety situations, when you just literally don't have the budget dollars to spend, sometimes you have to go this route. We found, though, that you could educate people. And a lot of programs out there, so we started researching some programs around the state and around the country, and we found a lot of them were focused on education. In fact, the state of Texas used to have a program called Watchers that did just that. They were educating, and they were putting tools in the hands of those who were motivated enough to use them to save energy. And it was wildly effective when somebody was motivated to go do that. Which leads me to the third thing, motivation. We really found that this was where kind of the rubber met the road. Without the motivation, all the mandates in the world, all the education in the world didn't lead to long-term sustained results. It also didn't lead to many happy people. So you could educate them and you could mandate them, but you could not make them happy until you motivated them. So what we've started advocating is this motivate over mandate rule. And what we do, and I'll explain our program here in a little bit, is we make it fun to save energy. And I know that sounds a little cheesy, but we do. We make it fun to save energy, and then by making it fun, you can actually slowly start making some progress on the mandates. So all of a sudden you can start changing your set points. You can start setting some of those environmental standards so that you don't have to run your facilities 24/7 or 75 in the winter and 65 in the summer. You can start to make some progress on all of these areas where otherwise you would have gotten complete pushback from the occupants in your space. So we've got 2 programs, and they're really going to focus on the motivate and the educate piece. The first one is called Conserve My Planet. This one was originally geared towards K-12, and we've actually found it's quite successful in pretty much any office type environment. And this was really geared towards raising awareness for energy efficiency, and it was geared towards all of the occupants. So in the past, we'd really focused on maybe the administration or maybe the maintenance guys, because those really had the most control, centralized control, and it was easier to impact those people. But as we learned to spread that message around, we were able to get some of this, this motivation that we're talking about. So this program teaches occupants to become more energy efficient. And it's really because we're all about saving money first and sustainability second, because that's the economics of the real world. We really wanted to push them towards the energy conservation first, but also drive this sustainability message and create this culture of sustainability, because that's the feel-good part that actually keeps people motivated and keeps them continuing to change their behavior. So we found all of this out. We also found out that if we could engage and empower those people, so if we gave them a little bit of control to make some changes in their own space, they were much more open to trying to help out. So I'll tell you about a case study here in a little bit, but we let, some elementary kids take over their schools for about a week, and we were amazed at what they did in an effort to save energy in their space, and they did. I mean, they saved about 30% energy over the baseline in less than a week. So for a facility that was already efficient. So we'll talk about that here in a second. And the other thing that we found out, especially in the US, this doesn't go for every country, but we are competitive. How many of you played sports? How many of you watch sports? How many of you like to yell at the TV when your team's not winning? It's because we're all competitive. So we really need to rely on that as we're trying to implement these programs. Leverage what you know, leverage our culture, and make it fun and make it competitive. Because the more competitive you can make it, the more people are going to stay engaged with it. So Conserve My Planet does all of that. It does it in a consulting type fashion. So we go in and we sit down with the administration. We get some key people assigned to the project that are incentivized to go out and make changes. And then we talk to them about all of the different things that they could do. We figure out what's going to fit in with your situation. So, it doesn't make sense to go and do a massive rollout of some activities if you know already that everybody in your organization is going to balk at it. So we work around all of those local cultural differences and kind of play on them. And then we figure out, okay, so we've got all of these preconceptions about how they're going to react. So we test out a few things that are outside of that bubble of things that we know are safe, and we start to expand the impact of the project. So we'll do all of this. We work with you. We don't necessarily go in and turn off all your lights for you. We don't necessarily go in and run massive events for you. We will give you content so that you can start to educate and so that you can start to run these competitions and all of these things. And it's basically an empowerment program, not only for you but also for your occupants. I'll talk a little bit more about that and how we implemented it in a second. The other option we have, and I don't know how well known this is Schneider Electric. If you ever go to our website, it says that energy is not free, but learning about it is, or learning to save it is. And so we've got a program called My Energy University. It's actually a very well-run online service, and basically it's a series of about 60 online courses that anybody can take. They're free, and those courses are growing. So you can learn anything from anything along, building envelope, HVAC, lighting control, all of these things that we're talking about here, and a lot more. And you can learn about them free and on your own. And so what we've actually seen is some of our customers have used this and integrated it into the curriculum for their own maintenance guys, so that they're developing their own employees. The courses are relevant for most facility types. It'll tell you if it's a specialty facility type. It's all self-study, and the curriculum was really designed for continuing ed type credit. So IEEE and a number of other organizations recognize it, but it's geared towards professionals. So if you want to start to learn more about any aspect, you can actually go online and look at this today. So that covers the educate part. But let's get back to behavior a little bit. So we've got a project that I'd like to talk about. It's at a small school called Allen ISD in North Texas. Anybody familiar? A few of you in the back. There you go. So their challenge was that they had to cut their energy spend by 10%. They just didn't have it in their budget. And so they had to figure out one way or another to go ahead and cut their budget by 10% this year. And so they were not a Schneider Electric customer. They just happened to be talking to us at the right time. And we talked to them about this program. They were already highly energy efficient. They have meters on all of their facilities. They've gone in and done energy conservation measures. They've got a 3-team energy management team that runs all of these programs like clockwork. I mean, they are very active in their energy management. And so you really, this of all those buildings out there, these are some of the more challenging buildings to keep squeezing energy out of. But we took on the challenge. So we suggested that they use behavior modification. That was kind of the next step. They didn't have anybody outside of this core team really involved. So, but what we did have is this core team. So, and they were highly motivated to go ahead and meet that budget cut. It was about a $650,000 cut that they needed to achieve. So we went ahead and utilized this behavior modification approach. And so before the school year started, we met with them probably July of last year or so. And we met with this core team and we talked through all of these problems that they were having. So we talked through, all of the things that they had already tried to do, some of their failed attempts in the past. They had tried to run a couple of programs on their own, and they just kind of flopped. And we quickly started putting together a plan. That plan involved their communications director, all of their principals, and their superintendent. So we immediately started pulling in some of the areas of power within their organization so that we could get some support. We pulled in their communications guy because he holds all those channels to get to all of their teachers and staff. And we decided we were just going to start off, because it was such a monumental task, we were just going to start off with elementary schools and just the teachers. We were not going to roll this out to students because we felt like it was too big of a deal. And so we start planning, and we had 4 major events on the docket, and then weekly communications planned to try to keep the education level up. And so during Teacher in Service Day before school started, we actually gave their maintenance, these 3 guys, the energy management team, all of the content to go in there and actually start talking about the problems that they were having. So they got to talk about their energy spend. They got to talk about, hey, if we don't save it here, we're going to have to save it somewhere else. And this is the number 3 budget line item between labor and, oh goodness, there's another one in there, I should know. But labor, obviously the teacher's salary being the number 1 cost. And they really wanted to avoid having to cut in that area. So kind of made it personal for those teachers. But we also didn't want to scare them too badly, so we gave them some very quick and immediate things they could change. Take the Christmas lights out of your classrooms, turn your lights off, try to use your projector and turn all of your overhead lights off as much as you can during the day. All these little things, and we showed them how it all added up to well over $650K a year. So we quickly empowered them. Gave them a little bit of motivation through a little bit of scare, but also through what could be, and rolled this out at that in-service day. And then we started doing some regular communications. Well, about 3 weeks into school, the maintenance guys, or the energy managers rather, came up to us and they said, the teachers really want to get the students involved. They think that they can make a much bigger impact if we get the students involved. Since they were on board, and we had all these teachers supporting us, we thought, why not? So we scheduled a big event for October Energy Awareness Month. And we took a week out of Energy Awareness Month. We scheduled for that week, we would have 5 different activities or challenges for that week that were all around energy, conservation, and sustainability. One of them was Turn Off the Lights Day. Another one, Friday was probably, I think it was Mean Green Day, so where everybody wore their green shirts to the football games. And they were just little things that would give them ideas on how to save energy. And we sequenced them from most impactful to the utility budget to least impactful. So we started off the week, with the biggest bang that we could, and kept giving them new ideas throughout the week. We also used that whole competitive spirit. So we threw a couple of prizes out there, and I think one of them was the Stanley Cup of trophies. This thing was massive. I don't know where they found it, but it was taller than some of the kindergartners that we were trying to motivate, and they were excited about this trophy. I think they got it donated, so it was low cost. It was low cost. So all of that to to motivate them. And so what we found during this week was we had given them all of these ideas, and we had challenged them to find other ideas on their own. And so if you had walked through the schools that week, you would have noticed all of the hall lights were off. Most of the classroom lights were off. The windows were being used. The lights from the windows were being used. You didn't see a single computer turned on at night. And all of these things that the occupants had control over were actually turned off. Far more than we had ever asked. We never told anybody to turn their hall lights off. I mean, that was something that they came up with on their own. And so it all added up. We did measurement and verification on this and found that some of the schools saved 30% over the baseline from the previous week with the exact same weather use. Now, that's great for a week, but it has to add up to $650,000, right? So the challenge with behavior modification is automating it somehow, getting it to repeat without these massive events every single week. 'Cause people get burnt out, right? So what we found with this particular site, our client, is that we were able to, through the education that had occurred for that week, they were actually able to continue some of the results the following week. So they were still excited, lights were still being turned off the following week. But by the third week, things were starting to get back to normal. However, the energy management team took advantage of the fact that people were open to new things. And so they started changing some of the time schedules. So instead of heating the school starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, they waited until 7:30. And everybody knew that it was going to be a little less comfortable, but they knew what the bigger goal was in mind, and it was okay. And they're still doing this today. So all of these little things give you a little bit of room to start taking some of that territory back that you need in order to make a larger, more automated energy improvement. So just looking really quickly, we're still in the school year. But that first event in October reduced the energy spend by $31,000 for 2 months. So we actually saw that the energy use continued to decline. The students immediately enjoyed the activities. They are still talking about it. They got press in the local newspaper. The parents knew about it. The PTO, got involved. It increased their ability to change the set points, dim lights, and do a whole lot of other little minor changes that added up. And for the event, for the cost of all of what they did, the payback was way less than a year. It was tiny. So it goes to show how much of that 60% that our occupants really do actually control and how low cost you can do these things. Now, I do want to talk about some of the other behavior modification programs that are out there right now. There are quite a few on the market. They range from free, like I mentioned. Texas has had a couple of programs, and they still have some of their assets online where you can download them, all the way to some very expensive programs. There are some shared savings programs out there that some of you have run across, and all of them have their advantages. So, obviously the free ones is the low cost, but it also means that your team has to spend a lot more time and effort getting them implemented, making sure they stay in place, making sure everybody's motivated and all of that. To the very high cost ones where you may add a staff member just for this program, and that staff member is maybe flown somewhere to go to training and is in constant contact with somebody else, and they run around and turn off the lights, and maybe you don't even have to do any occupant behavior because you've got this person that is running around your schools or your buildings and changing all of these things. What we advocate, though, is really kind of in the middle. The free programs don't have enough structure for you, typically, and the other programs have so much cost that you're leaving a lot of dollars, you're giving the dollars away to someone else, and it's awfully difficult to hand all of those savings over so quickly. especially when you can use that to, buy other improvements that your facilities really need. So, so we kind of advocated something in the middle, some sort of a consultative approach, somebody that could come out and give you, the advice you need, that has seen what works in other facilities, might have some fresh eyes and be able to kind of push you a little bit, but not too far. And so, and that seems to work really well, because they can get you, all the tools you need to get your teams motivated. They're there kind of watching your back, making sure you're not making any missteps. And they're also there to remind you that, hey, with all the other things that you're doing in your day-to-day job, remember, we've got to save energy too. So those are some of my recommendations. I will tell you what we found that works best, regardless of whether you've got a free program or one of the very high-priced programs, is that you need a dedicated and incentivized team. And when I say incentivized, they don't have to be, paid a $30,000 a year bonus. They just need to have some KPIs, some metrics in their annual performance review that are dedicated to this, so that they're motivated personally to go ahead and get this done. You need to engage your communications team. They already have all of those lines of communication open. They usually are looking for content for newsletters, for those email blasts, and all of the other regular communications that are going out. So use it. It's there. It's already set up. It's the easiest thing you can do. Start planning early. This is very critical. It's difficult to put these events on. I'm sure any of you that have done any event planning know the struggle of putting any event together. If you start planning early, you're going to have a much stronger event, and you're going to come up with a lot better ideas, because you're not going to be so rushed. And then we recommend to start small and then build on it. A lot of times people will get frustrated because they've bitten off too much. Or they will, make a big splash with a great communications piece, and they just don't have the energy to keep the program going. And so if you start small, start with the people that are going to have the biggest impact on your energy, or the ones that are most motivated to help you out. Start with them, give them tools, give them direction, and then start growing from there. And then keep the message simple. We can talk all day about some really complex HVAC algorithms and rules and analytics and all of these really cool tools, but it doesn't get energy saved in the end when we're talking to occupants. So we need a very simple message. Work a slogan into your own organization's name. Put a green team out there. Something simple. And then rely on motivation and competition, keeping it fun. So we don't. The mandates work to a certain degree, but they really fall short of where you can go if you're motivating and you're driving competition. And then just repeat yourself. Just repeat yourself. So, any questions? Go ahead.
Long term, what do you suggest, like for schools? I mean, you've got a set population right there, but then in a year or two, you're probably going to have new teachers, maybe some new administrative staff, of course the kids. What do you suggest for those school districts to move beyond 1 to 2 years?
Yeah, so school districts are, schools, higher ed, K-12 are difficult because it's such a transient population almost. What we recommend is you actually start with the lower grades and get the students involved. Because if you get the students involved when they're in kindergarten or middle school, they actually become leaders of the program as they excel through the different grades. And so you actually, you can then utilize some of their excitement and their interest while growing some of those leadership opportunities and and shaping their minds around sustainability and energy conservation. So it really is a win-win all the way around. Now you will have to re-engage the teachers every year, but honestly that doesn't usually take too much effort. Any other questions?
In thinking about this, I mean, you just finished it with the last sentence, you have to re-engage the teachers every year. Have you thought about spreading that to the community and making a community green where you know, it's kind of building sustainability where you don't have to come back. And I could see a school district making an investment if we would be able to do the teachers, the students, and somehow, you know, spread it to the community.
Yeah, and what we've done, we've leveraged the students in the same way. So one of the things we really like the idea of is having the students do energy audits at school as part of the curriculum, and then go home and do the same thing.
Exactly.
And then they get to educate their parents on it if their parents don't know, or at least heighten their awareness. And then we've got a number of other activities that we usually recommend people do, like there's an energy carnival where it's essentially a more relaxed version of a science fair, but all around energy. And so you can hold that in the evening and get the community involved, get all the parents involved, and these, you know, and start to expand that out. Once again, though, you really have to rely on those channels of communication. So if you've got somebody at your local newspaper that can kind of get the word out for you, if you can use some of those lines of communication through back to family members, those are usually the most practical ways of getting the word out.
But would you have, if not, and I know everything costs money, but would you have like resources or where you could refer a school district that wants, or maybe a community that wants to do a green community?
Yeah.
And reference, you know, so they could continue through the summer and make it a community initiative.
Exactly. Yeah, you can. It's a challenge just to get the word out. So the most challenging piece is really the communications piece. So, but it's certainly, you know, it's as much effort as you want to put into it. The more effort you put in, the more you get out.
Can I add something?
He does.
The key to making that work. I mean, we've seen other communities where. We've seen other communities where, for instance, the city, the school district, the hospital have all banded together to make that happen. We have some clients, I can think of a couple off the top of my head in Kansas where they've done that. And what it really takes is one leader from one of those organizations to step up and be the catalyst to drive that. But if you are that person, or you think you may know that person, we absolutely have the resources to come alongside and help facilitate that becoming a reality. I mean, the power of something like this, when you're coming at it from all those angles, is pretty substantial.
And I guess I think about that because, you know, this region has a lot of small communities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have Major, McAllen, Brownsville, you know, Harlingen, but we have a lot of small communities where that would work because you get the city and you get the school and you get everybody involved. And I'm just wondering, where would we find resources for something like that?
UTPA, that's the Office for Sustainability, is here to provide those resources for you. I'm sorry I jumped in, but I wanted to mention to you, as Mr. Anderson mentioned, it does take a champion. If the champion approaches us, we can provide those resources, but we can't do it for them. We're here to provide the resources, and we are a regional institution, and we are here to provide as much help and assistance as we can. One of the reasons we provide these educational formats is precisely to help the entire region understand that we're all trying to do this together, and if we do it together, we can make it happen. If we're doing it individually, it makes it that much more, I don't want to say necessarily difficult, but it prolongs the process, because sustainability is a process. It takes all these different phases, and one person might be at this level, or another community or city might be at another level. And it doesn't mean that we should deter from doing it, it just means we need to work with each other so we can do it together. Is there we'll have conversations? Start right. We're already very competitive as it is, politically speaking, so we want to be careful and make sure that we can engage everyone and share, and do all this together. Are there any other questions?
Comment on the early planning, instruction, all of this. When I was superintendent, I had a coach that didn't want to teach, he wanted to be outside of the classroom. The only way you can be out of the classroom is to involve the entire school, always down to the elementary school. and build a program, develop a program that will eventually hook up to reach the level that you want to be at. What you did, guess what?
Yeah. Start at the lowest levels because you're going to have the longest time. So make it, for those of you that know more students, it would be a good idea to start with your own employees. If you've done something that you do in your offices and with the community, that's a great idea. And so you can certainly leverage that.
Any other questions? We want to thank Ms. Brandy Moore. We'd also like to thank Schneider Electric for this wonderful lunch. I hope you have all enjoyed today. We do want to ask you before the end of this session, if you could please fill out those surveys. Very important to us that you fill out those surveys and let us know, and please be honest and let us know what type of impact these sessions are having. We, as everyone else, are suffering through budget cuts, and so programs are being cut as well. So it's very important to us that you indicate, just how you feel about these programs. Again, thank you to Schneider, thank you to Marco Arredondo Incorporated, thank you to Parsons Roofing, to Perry Mechanical Systems, and thank you to Rio Grande Valley Sustainability Council. For those of you who are not aware, Rio Grande Valley Sustainability Council, as well as the U.S. Green Building Council here locally, which is our Rio South Texas branch, have now become partners with the Office for Sustainability, and together we will be providing you these sessions to further, again, the outreach and awareness on sustainable practices and sustainable products and methods. So again, we're not here to promote or endorse, we're here to educate and to provide that educational format and also that substance that will allow everyone to take a look at the different options that are available for the different circumstances and different situations and different budgets, because I know that that's a big issue. So thank you once again. I do want to put a few slides up with reference to the upcoming events. One of them that is actually happening tomorrow is Mr. Thomas Friedman will be here at UTPA at 7 o'clock. If you would like to attend, we highly recommend that you get here as early as possible. The